Hello, Tubies. I hope you're doing fantastically fabulous, and if you're not doing fantastically fabulous, then I'm sorry for you. But I have something that might cheer you up today. We're going to talk about a Scott Cunningham book. It's called The Encyclopedia of Crystal, Gem, and Metal Magic. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this book. I don't think I've ever talked about this book on my channel before, but it's a very fascinating book. You're also going to hear the outside world because the outside world is directly behind you. You can't see the outside world, but I can, and the cats can, and they like to go outside. I also live in a downtown area where there's traffic, so you're going to have to forgive me. I wanted to talk about this book because it's very similar to the Scott Cunningham herb book, which you've all probably owned at least 1 or 2 copies of and flip through every day looking for new ways to use your herbs. I know when I first purchased that book, that was a very essential aspect of my craft because I didn't really have anything aside from a couple of books on how to grow herbs and what they're used for, but nothing in a sense of magicalness. I didn't realize at the time, this is back in the early 2010s, that there was a concept of the internet that would have lots of information of herbs and whatnot. YouTube wasn't really, either it wasn't a thing or it wasn't a very big thing back then. I don't really know when YouTube came about and started to become prevalent specifically for witches. I don't really work with a lot of crystals, but I know a lot of you out there work with crystals, and you've heard me talk in the past about hippy dippies and so on and so forth. And I find it kind of fascinating that people will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on crystals, and they'll have these huge crystal collections, but they don't really do much with the crystals. So if you're the type of person who has lots and lots of crystals, but you don't really know what to do with them aside from the fact that they look pretty, you might want to pick yourself up this book. This book goes into talking about visualization, their different powers of crystals, how to use them in magic. It even includes a couple of spells. It talks about, for example, there's alum, A-L-U-M. Its energy is receptive, its planet is Saturn, its element is earth, its powers are protections. Its magical uses, alum has been worn in Egypt as a protective amulet against evil. In north coast of Africa, alum is also used for this purpose. A piece of alum placed in the home to guard it, and small amounts of the mineral are sewn into or placed into children's hats to protect them as well. Another particular one that you may wear on your finger, especially if you are married, are diamonds. Protective. Their planet is sun, their element is fire, their associated metals are platinum, silver, and steel. Their powers are spirituality, sexual dysfunction, protection, courage, peace, reconciliation, healing, and strength. And there's an entire couple of pages on the magical uses of diamonds. Diamonds are obviously going to be difficult to get a hold of. There's even colored pictures and illustrations of the gems in question so that you can see what they look like and how you might use them. There is a crystal place by me, and for a time I would buy crystals. Most of the things that I buy now are either quartz crystals, which are really great for grounding yourself and for use in astral projection and attuning yourself with the earth. Here's some more pictures of crystals. Okay. Another type of thing, so it goes through all different types of crystals, but it also goes through things like salt and sulfur. Here's one on sulfur, for instance. The folk names are sulfur or sulfur. It's spelled differently. One is with a PH, one is with an FE. The energy is protective. You see me use sulfur in some of my magical spells, including the one that we just did, where we were getting, people who are talking nasty about us to go away, to burn their tongue, to make them just disappear. Sulfur is really great for protection. Don't burn sulfur. Keep sulfur away from children. Keep sulfur away from pets. If you end up burning sulfur in your house for whatever reason, maybe you put it into an herbal mixture and forgot that it's in an herbal mixture, even though if you smell the herbal mixture, you will smell the strong smell of sulfur. But if you've managed to burn some sulfur in your house, you can take a charcoal, and put some drops of water on it while it's lit, and that will help to get rid of the smell of sulfur. I would also recommend opening your windows and doors and burning some incense to get rid of that really, really gross smell. The powers of sulfur are protection and healing. The element is fire. The planet is sun. There's magical uses. Sulfur was prescribed until quite recently for colds, rheumatism, and bodily pain. It was usually placed in small red bag and worn around the neck. Pieces of sulfur are also placed on the altar during protective rituals or in the home as generated by as a general magical quote-unquote ward. I don't really use a lot of sulfur. I have a small thing of sulfur that's lasted me many years because sulfur goes a really long way. Some of the demons and entities that I work with really don't like sulfur, which is ironically funny because in fantasy television shows and movies, there's always a talk of there being sulfur in the area, like in the area, or the smell of sulfur when demons are appearing or coming nearby or whatever. Specifically in Supernatural, in earlier versions of like earlier seasons of the show, there would be the smell of sulfur, or there'd be sulfur left behind when a demon was around. I don't really have that case. I've never smelt sulfur when a demon is around. I know some of the demons that I work with refuse to come around if there is sulfur on the altar. Even if it's in a herbal mixture that has nothing to do with the working that I'm doing, they will still refuse to come. It talks about metals in here, so there's a chapter on metals, so like copper, for instance, which its energy is receptive, planet is Venus, element is water, deities are Aphrodite, Ashtarote, Ishtar, associated stones are quartz crystals and emeralds, associated herb is mimosa, powers, energy, direction, healing, luck, love, protection, money, magical ritual lore. It's also got magical uses. There's a whole section on magical uses for copper. Okay. Gold is another one. Protective, sun, fire, associated stones are quartz crystals, lapis lazuli, olivine, peridot, a bunch of other crystals I can't pronounce. Its powers are healing, power, protection, wisdom, money, success, male sexual dissatisfaction, right? So there's other stuff in here on like lead and mercury. Be careful with the types of metals you're working with because you don't know if you're really allergic to those metals. So if you're touching the metal or the metal gets on your skin, you could have an allergic reaction. I know some people are allergic to gold, some people are allergic to copper, some people are allergic to lead. Definitely don't be ingesting lead. Remember, lead used to be used in paint and especially on children's toys, right? But if you have an old child's toy that's made of lead that your children don't play with because you shouldn't let them play with lead-based toys, especially children who like to put things in their mouth, then you can use that in your workings as well, okay? There's other things in here about like there's supplemental information in here, so you get like planetary rulers and all of that other fun kind of information that you would want in relation to herbs and so on, or not herbs, but crystals and metals and so on and so forth. I believe there was one in here on, there's a chapter in here on obtaining stones, there's stones of energy, there's magic, there's how to cleanse your stones, stone tarot, magic jewelry, stone spells, the stones, the metals, birthstones, magical substitutions, magical intentions, so on and so forth. This is a really good book to add to your arsenal if you are somebody who works a lot with crystals and you're more new age and you want to understand the powers that you're using. Even as a Wiccan, I would suggest owning this because lots of Wiccans have crystals. Even if you're not a Wiccan and you're just a general witch who has lots of crystals, you might want to own this book. For those of us who have coal in our house, specifically the charcoals that we burn for our herbs, coal's energy is receptive, its planet is Saturn, element is earth, power is money, magical uses. Coal, the common substance used to heat millions of homes, is considered by many an excellent money attraction and hence is carried in the pocket and placed with money. Speculators in the stock exchange in London often carry some coal with them for luck. I don't know if that would really apply here to our charcoal stone or charcoals that we burn, but I would assume so. One of my favorite stones is the bloodstone. Also, it's got some folk names I can't pronounce, but its energy is protective, its planet is Mars, its element is fire, sorry. Its powers are halting bleeding, healing, victory, courage, legal matters, wealth, strength, power, business, invisibility, agricultural stuff like that, right? So there's even one in here on salt, and let's see if I can quickly find that. So I found the section on salt. Its energy is receptive, its element is earth, its deity is Aphrodite, its associated herb is Kai or Tai, it's Ki or Ti. Its powers is purification, as we know, protection, as we know, grounding, and something interesting you might not have known about salt, money. There's a whole section on magical ritual and lore. Salt is one of the magical uses of salt is fine grounding and cleansing material to purify gemstones. Place them in a bowl of salt and leave for a week or so. See chapter 7. So again, this is a really interesting book, and I recommend that you go and you pick it up. I bought it for $19.50 Canadian. According to the back of this book, you can buy it for $16.95 American. Obviously, it may be a bit more expensive, or it might be a bit more cheaper. It really depends on where you live. Okay, so I hope that this was interesting for you, and I hope that you go and pick up this book. I mean, you don't have to if you want to. If you have this book and you've used it, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on it. If you don't have this book and you really want it, I'd like to know, but I don't really know what I would want to know from that, but you get the point, right? Do you have other books on gems and crystals? I think there's another book that I have on gems and crystals. If I have that book and you guys want me to talk about it, I definitely can. I can't remember what the name of that book is off the top of my head. I don't think it's a Scott Cunningham book though. Anywho, let me know down in the comments, okay?